Speaking of bad science and not enough research, we were going to talk about this eventually, but it's come to it hasn't gotten to the point where you know that it did, but now we have to talk about it, and that is climate change.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so what really set me over the edge again about this stuff. It all kind of culminated into like kind of at the same time. But I went out to eat on Saturday to one of my favorite eateries, and they have now switched over to so we were supposed to get rid of plastic straws, right? Okay, and so but they decided to, instead of handing out paper cups for for the drink with one plastic straw, which not really all that much plastic. No, we're gonna go to this full on plastic cup with this plastic top that makes me look like I'm drinking out of a fucking sippy cup, like I'm 3 years old. Because I don't know how to use a regular glass like a grown adult.
Right.
Which pissed me off. I was looking at this like, this is fucking embarrassing. I'm 32 years old. I don't need a fucking sippy cup. Just give me a goddamn like normal cup with a straw. Like this. This is a normal cup with a straw. This is what a real person drinks out of. Not this.
Yeah, that's what an adult drinks from.
Had it not been from Saturday, like I would have kept it just for the show. But I was like, I mean, it's fucking embarrassing. I felt I couldn't drink it in the store. I waited till I got home because I was like, I don't want to be seen drinking this goddamn thing. But after that, all this news came out. With some of the climate stuff going on. So the one question this girl who's become somewhat, or to me, she's being used by the left and her parents and whatnot. This girl from, what is she, Swedish? She's from
Sweden.
Greta Thunberg, who is, everyone's kind of up in arms because people are saying it's like you're using this mentally ill child who. I'm not saying that she has autism, like OCD. She has all these other mental issues that are would be considered using science, that these are mental conditions that not that I'm not saying she's dumb, because she's not.
But it does hamper or skew her view of the world.
Right. Well, and the thing is, the stuff that she's being fed is from her, ultra liberal parents, the left, everyone that's lauding, kind of giving her all this fame and attention, and so she's, it's kind of, and knowing her condition, they're feeding stuff into that condition, and presenting her a reality that's not actually a reality, and that's kind of, to me, that's like, I'm not mad at her. It's kind of like you can't blame a monkey with a knife that stabs people. I mean, it's like it's like,
you have to you get angry at the person that gave that monkey a knife.
Exactly, and that's what's happening with, and we're lauding the, for one, she's 16 years old, for God's sakes. So. Mm-hmm. It's kind of another David Hogg situation where it's like,
right. Oh, wow, if we don't let them buy beer, why will we let them say stuff?
Like I said, I'm not saying that they're dumb, but you're 16. Like you don't have all this experience.
Right, and that's exactly, and yeah, there's a lot of people will hear me say like, oh, you can't even buy beer. What makes you think you can tell me what to do? It's like that's what I mean. It's like these children, like if you went to my if I went to my 16-year-old self for advice, I would have, my 16-year-old self would give me the worst advice ever. I'm just being straight up, It took a long time for me to, it took me a long time to gain the wisdom that I have now.
I'm not saying that there is like no wisdom. Like, you know, there's certain things that kids know better than me. Like
but
if I
it's
had
broad
questions
truth.
on
It's
like
broad truth. It's like
right
you shouldn't litter. No shit, Sherlock.
right, but it also goes to like you know the experience that we talked about. You know, when you're that young, the world is very black and white. It's like it's very legalistic. You know, there's right, there's wrong. There's no like in between. You know, it's that the existential crisis, the you know kind of wrestling with situations that comes with like age, maturity, and knowledge that you acquire over time. You know, if I look back, even 10 years ago, I would probably disagree with my myself from 10 years ago, then and just based off all the knowledge and wisdom I've acquired over those 10 years through failure, through just stuff that I've knowledge that I've acquired, all that stuff. So like I said, kids. I'm not saying that like teenagers are dumb, but it's just
Well, I'm saying it.
they're.
Teenagers are dumb.
Well, I mean, there are a lot that are like wow, like they just don't know anything.
Well, I
But
mean,
hell, there's people.
if anything, just look at like the recent the walkout that happened. With all the kids. It's like well, and they didn't get penalized for it. It wasn't going to be held against them for their grades or for their attendance or whatever. It's like, yes, go out in the street, go and tell adults how it should be done. It's like you're a bunch of fucking kids.
Well, here's the thing, Andy. It's like it's not so much that I'm not saying that none of those kids were out there, talking about the climate.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to say probably about 98% of them are like, fuck it, I get to go out of school early. Awesome. Like I'm out of here.
Yeah, that's another angle. But I'm not necessarily upset with the kids, especially the ones who are gaming the system. Good for you for gaming the system. But I'm more
who
pissed.
would have done that? This guy right here.
Yeah, exactly. I know. I would have been like, yeah, climate, yay, and then slowly back away and like head over to the arcade or something.
You pull the Homer Simpson through the bushes where you just kind of like meld into the back.
Yeah, exactly. I'm just like, it's like, and like, yeah, climate change, bad, climate change. It's like slowly back away. But it's like the adults in these children's lives, like the teachers, probably some of the parents. If it was me that if I was 16 and then my mother heard about this walkout, she would have said, "You leave school, I'll kill you."
Yeah, I was gonna bring that up. It's like my mom would have like torn me to pieces.
Right? It's like if I see you out there with all those other idiots, I'm gonna kill you. That's what my mom would say to me.
That would have been hanger beatings,
Exactly.
It's like because my mom was like, unless like I was dead, it's like you're going to school. You don't leave school. You study hard and you make something of yourself. Like you don't leave school for some frivolous activity.
Right. I mean, I told you that story, about my mom and when I was sick, and then I told her I wasn't going to school. And what were her first words to me? What about perfect attendance?
Yeah. God. I may not be Korean, but like I feel you, dude. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But yeah, it's like, I mean, if I had a teenager and they were spouting off all that stuff, I would have taken all of their shit away from them. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, we need to protect the environment, right? So you need any of this stuff. Take your computer, take your iPad. You don't need it. It takes energy. Where does energy come from? Coal. And we all know coal's bad, so take away all your, take away our smart devices. It's like, oh, these clothes, they were made using electricity, probably electricity from, nuclear energy. Oh, we can't have that. Take that away. It's like, I would have made them live their shit. I would have like thrown them out, given, given them a tent. Because I'm not that cruel as a parent.
I kind of on a little bit of a side note here before I kind of finish my thought on all this, the climate strike or whatever the fuck it was called.
Mm-hmm.
Nuclear energy, like it's kind of like the same, kind of the same deal that they're doing with like the vaping stuff. Is they're creating this boogeyman that doesn't exist because it is a way for us. It's a different industry that's more efficient, that is cleaner, that's actually like a good thing. But it's like, they want to create this boogeyman that doesn't exist, so it doesn't get used and gets banned, and
highly regulated.
And even like, I'm not saying that there's no, I can't fully say that like there's nothing bad that could happen. I mean, certainly there could be, but you look at all the all these places that were bombed or had nuclear like meltdowns or whatever, like the two cities in Japan that were bombed with nuclear bombs.
Mm-hmm.
Those are cities that people live in now. So
yeah, like immediately after.
Yeah, like obviously, like using the nuclear bombs. I'm not saying that. Obviously, yeah, they're a very high, very hot, produce a lot of energy and destroy a lot of area. I'm not saying that that's not true, but as far as like this, like this nuclear winter, like no one can ever live there, and for several lifetimes.
Right, that's not bullshit. True.
Chernobyl is all the wildlife is.
Yeah, it's a wildlife. That's a wildlife reserve. There's deers and shit living in there now, and it's over. Like all the buildings are overgrown with plants. All the wildlife, the deer, the little rabbits, everything is moved back into it. And I think Chernobyl was in 80 something.
Yeah, it was 80 something. I think. Yeah, like
86.
Yeah, it was like late 80s.
So I mean, yes, it's technically the half-life, the fallout, the supposed fallout, the time period has already elapsed. But yeah, that shit was already like that shit was.
Maybe like 5 years after. Like,
yeah, 5 years after it was back to normal.
That's what I'm thinking. It's like, wait a second. I feel like I'm being lied to almost, because you look at because we helped rebuild Japan after the war, after World War II, and people were moving back to those cities really not that long after. I mean, and sure, yes, the research had not been, they started doing a lot of like nuclear testing, and I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying that there's no side effects for some people,
mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think we're being lied to in a lot of ways.
Yeah, I'm so sorry. Did you want to finish your thought?
No, I'm just, like I said, it's because it's a natural, like I said, it's a natural energy source that can be used. It's very efficient.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, if you think about it, it's actually better for the environment in a lot of ways. If you're going off of like what the left's view of what's good for the environment,
uh-huh.
That's a way
mm-hmm.
that no one wants to use or think about.
Right. But to bring it back to the initial topic of climate change, they always talk about like, sea level rise, is gonna take away so much land from usable land. And I always bring this up. Like, but Al Gore in 2004 said that Florida would be underwater by 2007. It's now 2000. It's now 2019, and they're still, and Florida is still there. All penis shape of it and everything. It's still there. And
Still hanging
also,
around.
it's Florida is one of the biggest, condo development markets in the country.
Yeah.
And all the condos are being built, by the water. Yep. And if that's if you know and if the sea level is rising, then who's the moron at the bank that is approving these loans for those condos to be built? That'd be the worst investment ever.
Oh, you know who else buys homes like by the water? All these people were saying that the sea levels are rising. We're all gonna die from the sun monster. The Obamas, Al Gore, who anyone else you can name. Like you look at because they're getting money off of this fear mongering, and then they're just living the lifestyle that they want to live, and it's like it makes me think that all of this might actually be bullshit.
Right?
And
because especially for banks that if flooding or sea level rise was an issue, that would have been front page on the report. Before the loan officer was to approve anything. And
exactly.
I don't know about you guys. I don't know if you guys know, but banks are highly risk averse entities.
Because they actually do their research.
Exactly. Exactly, and also if the world's if we're to believe occasional Cortex and her saying that the world's going to end in 12 years, why are banks still giving out 30-year mortgages?
I said all bullshit.
Bullshit.
Yeah, but to go sorry to kind of backtrack just a little bit because I do have a point to my ramblings, my rant. Because I honestly, this whole thing kind of really pissed me off this weekend. It started with that fucking sippy cup that I had to drink out of. So, what also pissed me off is because you have this clearly this girl who has is clearly being manipulated and and she's being lied to, and I'm sure her tears are real. I don't know if they are or not, but because she's been told and manipulated to think that the world is going to end, she's propped up on television and going to the UN and oh wow, she's so all this
meeting with congressmen and senators.
Yeah, and it's all. I feel so awful for her that it disgusts me for one, and it honestly it's the same thing when our side does it too, because I don't honestly stop using kids. I don't like.
Right. I mean that was another thing I was gonna bring up is because
we talked about that the girl Soph or whatever the fuck her name was. Exactly. I didn't like that either.
Yeah. And I think that's what because they use children because if you attack a child, you're seen as a monster and you're immediately vilified and you're given no credence. Like, oh, that guy, the one that attacks children. I mean, similarly, that's what they did with Owen Benjamin. When he went after David Hogg, it's like, oh, how dare you go after this child? It's like he's 17, and in a couple months he's turning 18. Is he a child or is he a person who's able to have his own thoughts and opinions and be able to withstand the slings and arrows of being a public figure?
Right. Well, you had even back several months ago, you had those kids that went up to God, I can't believe I had to defend Dianne Feinstein.
I'm there with you. I'm there with you.
Which God, I shook with just rage that I had to defend this person. But it's like you have these kids that are going up who know nothing, And Dianne Feinstein's like, listen, like first of all, like I've been doing this for a long time. I think I know what I'm doing. And it's like, well, your voters, like, we voted for you. It's like, how old are you? Oh yeah, that's right. You're not old enough to vote, so you didn't vote for me, did you? It's like, so why didn't you spend the time until you can vote? Gain some. I don't think she said this actually, but like it was in definitely the tone is like, why don't you gain some knowledge, and then when it's time for you to vote, then you can vote your way.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like, until then, it's like, you're going to have to trust me. Like, I know what I'm doing.
Right.
And I was like, oh, God, I had to defend Dianne Feinstein.
Yeah.
It's like,
I get it, right? Because like when Piers Morgan makes a salient, yeah, I get it. Because when Piers Morgan, I hate Piers Morgan. He's an idiot. But when he makes salient point, it's like, God damn you, Piers Morgan, I have to defend you.
Yeah, it's like, that's how crazy. This is a clown world. This is how crazy things have gotten. I'm defending people that I hate because they actually are making sense, in that moment. Like, they're less crazy.
Yeah, I know. Credit where credit's due,
And the problem is okay. Like I said, I don't like people using children. They use the Parkland kids. They're using this Greta Thunberg girl. Even like like I said, I when we talked about the Soph girl, like I didn't like that. Because maybe in the off chance those are her genuine ideas. She's like some conservative prodigy. I have no idea, but more than likely those are her parents' ideals that she's putting out on the internet.
She definitely got a handler.
And the fact that she's being allowed to put that on the internet by her parents is kind of really, that's kind of like, there's no way in
hell. You're talking about Soph.
Yeah.
According to her, both of her parents are very liberal.
Like I said, I don't know, but like that's it. It just
but the fact that they're allowing her, maybe they're like the classical liberal. I don't know. But I mean, but I don't like how then people on the right will then line up behind her and be like, yeah, you tell her, and like as she's getting the slings and arrows.
Or like the was it the little AOC, which it is funny.
Right, it was funny. She was she's a cute little girl. It was entertaining.
But I didn't like that. I didn't like that either.
Right. Yeah. Exactly.
So you have that. But then you also have the other problem is that you have in DC. Was it this past? I think it was like on like Thursday or Friday. You had maybe it was Monday. I don't remember. I all the days are kind of blending together, unfortunately. But it was very recently. You had in DC. You had the climate strike or whatever the fuck was going on in there, and you had some homosexuals twerking or whatever, and like stop the pipelines, and they're throwing trash everywhere. So yay environmentalism.
Yeah. What the hell does twerking have to do with environmentalism?
But like it had. Well, that's the point I'm trying to make. It didn't have anything to do. One of the guys I watch on YouTube has a pretty like interesting take on things. John Miller, he went through and like was talking with some of these guys to try to get like what exactly is going on in their heads, like what are you guys out here doing, kind of coming out as like what are you guys talking about, like is this about the environment, like what's going on? And none of them could come up with a salient point about like it had nothing to do with the environment. It's like, it's about like social justice and rights, and it's like, what does that have to do with the environment? Or like literally none of them had any points about like we need to work on getting solar power, or it had nothing to do with that. All it had to do was with socialism and all this other stuff that had nothing to do with the environment, which is why I say bullshit. And then the other on the other side of the country, which is not talked about in the news at all, was we had people, I think, in LA, that were clearing. They cleared out like some 50 tons of trash. They went in hazmat suits and went through and cleared out like 50 tons of trash in somewhere in downtown.
Yeah, probably Skid Row area.
Probably Skid Row area, but like I didn't see where they were at, but not talked about it at all because that actually has an effect. It's like we have all these fucking needles and shit and disease that's coming through from the trash. Let's just fucking get rid of it. 50 tons, dude. That's not an insignificant amount.
Right. That's like at least a herd of elephants.
That's admirable.
Yeah.
Not a fucking word.